Hello everyone, welcome to Watercourse IAS Academy, Northeast's premier institute for UPSC, APSC and NPSC preparations. I'm your friend Atrey and today I'm here with another segment of Current Affairs 365 dated 4th of October 2021. This is your one-stop solution for any news and updates which will help you prepare for your civil services examination, and along with that it is also going to be beneficial for any other Assam state government services. So don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Facebook as well as Instagram for any further details related to government jobs. The first news of today is about a joint declaration between India and the United Kingdom on One Sun, One World, One Grid initiative. Both the countries are likely to announce this joint declaration at the upcoming Conference of Parties, COP26. The United Nations Climate Change Conference, or COP26, is all scheduled to be held between 31st of October and 12th of November in Scotland. The concept behind this declaration is what the British people have called a green grid. The main idea behind this concept is a transnational electricity grid supplying solar power across the globe. The vision behind One Sun, One World, One Grid is the uh, fact that the sun never sets and it is a constant source of energy at some geographical location globally at any given point of time. So, this is by far one of the most ambitious schemes undertaken by any country, specifically India, and it is of global significance in terms of sharing economic benefits. It has been taken up under the Technical Assistance Program of the World Bank, and this plan is also going to help the International Solar Alliance, which was co founded by India, and it has 80 countries as its members. With India in the middle, solar spectrum can be easily divided into two broad zones. First is the Far East countries, including Myanmar, Vietnam, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, etc. And the next zone is the Far West, covering countries of the Middle East and the African region. This entire project will be executed in three phases. First phase will entail interconnectivity within the Asian continent. In the second phase, African countries will be added, and third will be all about global interconnection. The main significance of this project is that it is going to help all the participating countries in attracting investments in renewable energy sources as well as utilizing skills, technology, and finances. This is going to lead to reduction in the project costs. It will help in getting higher efficiencies and increase the asset utilization for all the participating nations. This finally is going to result in economic benefits which will positively impact in helping poverty alleviation and will support in mitigating water, sanitation, food and other socio-economic challenges. This will allow the national renewable energy management centers of our country to grow as regional and global management centers. This move, specifically during the period of pandemic, is going to give India the opportunity to be seen as taking a lead in evolving the global strategies. However, there are certain challenges which are related to this project. First aspect of challenge is the geopolitics. This project is seen as an Indian endeavor for world leadership, but under the uncertainties of the pandemic, the geopolitical implications of projects are hard to decipher. The mechanism of cost sharing will also be quite challenging given the varied priorities of the participating countries depending on their socio-economic orders. Next is the constant battle between globalization and deglobalization. The plan of One Sun, One World, One Grid will turn out to be an expensive, complex, and a slow progress project. The strategic benefits of having a single grid will be obliterated in the wake of any geopolitical problem. And in India, the major issue of renewable energy developers is to deal with different state governments, hence, different laws and regulations as well. Further, this project will contradict Pradhan Mantri's Atmanirbhar Bharat vision as it extends the reliance for a major strategic entity energy supply to other countries through this particular grid. Next point is the centralized versus distributed generation. There is a huge difference in voltage frequency and specifications of the grid in most regions, and maintaining such grid stability with just renewable sources would be technically quite difficult. The major move is the key to renewable based energy systems globally, because regional and international interconnected green grids can enable sharing as well as balancing of the renewable energy sources across the international borders. This will also allow grabbing opportunities to learn from the global developments and share renewable energy resources, which will help in reduction of the global carbon footprint and will also insulate the societies from future pandemics. Moving ahead to the next news, which is a report released by Niti Aayog related to performance assessment of the district hospitals. This report has been titled as Best Practices in the Performance of District Hospitals. Now let us have a look at the key points of this report. This report is an outcome of collaboration between the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and World Health Organization India. The National Accreditation Board for Hospitals and Healthcare Providers, which is a constituent board of the Quality Council of India, is conducting the on-guard data validation. The Health Management Information System data for the year 2017-18 has been used as the baseline for this exercise. And for this performance assessment, the district hospitals were categorized into small, mid-sized, and large hospitals. Of the total hospitals that were studied for this survey, 62% were categorized as small. The assessment evaluated 707 district hospitals on 10 key performance indicators, which was based on the data from 2017-18. These indicators includes number of functional hospital beds per 1 lakh population, ratio of doctors, nursing staffs, and paramedical staff in position to the Indian Public Health Standards norm, proportion of support services available, proportion of core healthcare services available, proportion of diagnostic services available, bed occupancy rate, C-section rate, surgical productivity index, OPD per doctor, and blood bank replacement rate. As per this report, on an average, a district hospital had 24 beds for 1 lakh people. For the assessment, it was said that a hospital should have 22 beds for that many people as per the IPHS guidelines of 2012. Only 27% of the total 707 districts which were assessed met the doctor to bed ratio of 29 doctors per 100 beds in a hospital. And coming to the ratio of paramedical staff, only 399 hospitals were found to have a ratio of paramedical staff in position as per the norms which was laid down. On an average, every district hospital in India had 11 support services compared to the required number, which was 14. And coming to the OPD patients, on an average, a doctor in a district hospital attends to 27 OPD patients. So, looking at these statistics, certain suggestions were made by the administration, which includes increasing the resources. Adequate resources needs to be provided to the district hospitals towards digitization. National and regional level training workshops needs to be organized to acknowledge as well as to disseminate hospitals' best practices. Then the district hospitals should be linked to the nearest medical college by employing a hub and spoke distribution model, which is a cost effective and time saving transport and service distribution mechanism. It is also important to ensure 24/7 availability of support services, diagnostic testing facilities, pharmacy, and well planned shifts of medical and paramedical staffs. Hospitals should also encourage care seeking among the community through extension services, as also make seeking care a hassle free and productive experience. Now, if we take a look at the public healthcare facilities in our country, we have policy making in the country's health sector, which is shaped by its federal structure and the central state divisions of responsibilities and financing. Public health and sanitation, hospitals and dispensaries are state subjects, which means the primary responsibility of their management and service delivery lies within the states. The center also invests in health services through the centrally sponsored scheme like National Health Mission and Ayushman Bharat. Along with that, the center plays an important role in vital statistics, medical education, and drug administration, among others, which are subjects of the concurrent list. Then we have digitization of healthcare here. The National Digital Health Mission is a complete digital health ecosystem, and it will be launched with 4 key features, which includes Health ID, personal health records, DigiDoctor, and Health Facility Registry. We also have the Arogya Setu app, which has an objective of enabling Bluetooth-based contact tracing and mapping of the likely hotspots and dissemination of relevant information regarding COVID-19. The National Health Policy of 2017 aims to achieve universal access to good quality healthcare services without anyone having to face financial hardship as a consequence. It intends to gradually increase the public health expenditure to 2.5% of the GDP by 2025. This policy will also envisage a 3-dimensional integration of Ayush systems encompassing cross-referrals, co-location, and integrative practices across the systems of medicine. The next news is about a digital skilled platform named DigiSaksham, which has been jointly launched by the Union Labour Ministry and Microsoft India. This program mainly aims to enhance the youth employability. The joint initiative is an extension of the ongoing programs in order to support the youth from rural and semi-urban areas. This program is going to provide free of cost training in digital skills, which will include basic skills as well as advanced computing. It will be provided to more than 3 lakh youths in the first year of this program. Priority will also be given to those job seekers of semi-urban areas belonging to disadvantaged communities who have lost their jobs due to COVID-19 pandemic. Trainings would be conducted at the Model Career Centers and National Career Service Centers for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes across the country. This program is being implemented by the Aga Khan Rural Support Program India, which is a non-government development organization. It works as a catalyst for the betterment of rural communities by providing direct support to local communities. The job seekers can access the training through National Career Service Portal, which is a one-stop solution that provides a wide array of employment and career-related services to the citizens of India. This portal is implemented by the Ministry of Labour and Employment. There is a need to introduce this DigiSaksham program in order to bridge the gap of India's digital divide, placing the country on the path to inclusive economic recovery. Along with that, it will also prepare India's talent to thrive in a digital future, catering not only to the needs of the domestic economy, but also to tap the overseas employment opportunities. Other initiatives for youth employment in our country includes the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 3.0, Generation Unlimited in India, National Career Services, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, etc. So this was all for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'll see you all again tomorrow with another segment of Current Affairs 365 only on Borthakur's IAS Academy, Northeast's premier institute for UPSC, APSC and NPSC preparations. Till then, take care of yourself and keep learning.
বৰঠাকুৰ IAS Academy প্ৰস্তুতি আৰু অধ্যয়নৰ নিৰ্ভৰযোগ্য ঠিকনা। বৰঠাকুৰ IAS Academy